DreAllDay.com.
Couldn't be in a better place at a better time than tuning into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves me, you, and everyone else out there to go make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book, one show in this masterclass you're listening to right now that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and today's topic is focused on the marriage, not just the wedding. In other words, we're talking about the long-term game that you are in. It's very fun and exciting when you first get into a game. When you first start doing something, that's the marriage. Any of you ever been to a wedding? The wedding, rather. Any of you ever been to a wedding? Weddings are usually fun, right? Everybody's dressed up all nice. You got the bride and the groom who are saying their vows, and they both are lovingly looking into each other's eyes. There's usually some really good food at the reception. What else happens at a wedding? I don't know. All the other good, positive things you could think of happening at a wedding. A wedding is usually a very fun event. Now, a marriage, on the other hand, now I'm not married, so I'm not speaking from personal experience, but I've heard that marriages are work. That is not always so fun. That after the honeymoon, quote unquote, period is over, then you start to notice that everything ain't gonna be so easy and so smooth all the time. Every single day is not gonna be like that wedding. A lot of people like to start things, but they don't think about how they're gonna make that thing last. And this is why, as the statistics say, and everybody has different statistics that I hear here, but I've heard at baseline that 50% of marriages end in divorce within 5 years. That a lot of people can do the wedding, but they haven't thought hard enough or long enough about how they're going to make that marriage last. And again, this is not about nuptials and weddings. It's about long-term thinking in life, because a lot of people start things, but within 5 years, exact same metaphor, they're not still doing that same thing. They're not still working on it. They're not still being thorough about it. They're not still as engaged in that thing that they started less than 5 years ago, because even though it's very easy to get started, it wasn't so easy to get out. And that's what I want you to really think about with yourself. If you look at your own life right now, are you doing anything right now that you've been doing for at least 5 years? And I don't mean breathing or living. I mean, are you in a career? Have you done any career for at least 5 years? Have you run a business for 5 years? Have you played a sport for 5 years? Have you worked on achieving a certain goal for 5 years or more? Have you ever done that at any point in your life? There are a lot of people who haven't. You would be surprised to find out. Now, there are a few master classes I want to refer you to that in which I've talked about the long-term games of life. Masterclass number 1266, how to finish what you start. Number 1044, how to finish the marathon strong. Number 926, how to finish stronger than you start. These are all about the long-term thinking that you need to be doing in anything that you're going to get involved in, because one thing that you don't want in life is a whole bunch of shallow wells that you've dug. Meaning you've started a whole bunch of things, but you haven't really finished anything. You haven't seen anything through long enough to get any real tangible results that last. I mean, it's cool to get results in a moment, but do you have any results that last? Some tangible results that other people can benefit from, things that'll be paying you back long after you've done the work. Usually you're going to need to work on something for an extended period of time to get that, meaning you're going to have to do the marriage thing, not just the wedding thing. The wedding is fun to start, but what about the marriage? Have you really thought about how you're going to manage long term in these things that you're doing, not just in the short term? Point number one. Today's topic, once again, is focus on the marriage, not just the wedding. Number one, most people have short term goals and things that they're after. All right, there's nothing wrong with a short term goal. All right, like Jay-Z said, I'm making short term goals when the weather folds. Nothing wrong with having something that you want to do today, or something you want to do this week or within the next month. All right, short term goals are good things, and hopefully your short-term goals are all stacking on top of each other strategically, so that as you reach each short-term goal, they're building into a bigger long-term goal. So my question then is, what is that long-term strategy that you're working on, if any? Are you working on a long-term strategy, or are you just doing a whole bunch of short-term things because you haven't even thought about long-term strategy? How does today's work, what you're doing right now, how does this connect to tomorrow? How does this connect to a year from now? And so on. How does this connect to when you're no longer doing the work? How is it going to matter? Is the work that you're doing today going to matter when you stop doing this work? Is anything that you've done in the last 24 hours going to matter 3 years from now, or 30 years from now, or 10 years after you've died? What is your long-term strategy based on the efforts that you're taking, the efforts that you are making in the short term? What are you doing in the short term? How is that going to pay off for you long into the future? Have you written out and strategized your long-term outcomes and what results will connect to the current you, that will connect the current you to the future you? Let me ask that question again. Your long-term outcomes in life, whatever they may be, hopefully you have some. If you don't, I suggest you get the mental workbook and I'll help you lay those out for yourself. Your long-term outcomes in life. Here's the question. Have you written out and strategized how you're actually going to create those outcomes? Knowing what you want to do, then looking at where you are right now. How do you get from there, where you are now, to there? Here, let's say, here where you are now, to there where you want to go. Have you mapped that out? What do I need to do? What steps do I need to take? What type of person do I need to become? What would need to be true in order for me to get to this point and this point and this point? What actions do I need to take right now based on where I'm trying to go, knowing how much time I need and the things that are going to have to be true and the things that are going to have to be achieved? Do you have it written out? Again, not do you know it, but have you written out your long-term strategic plans to get to where you want to get to in the distant future? If you have not, then you need to do that. Now, I created the mental workbook, which you can get at workonmygame.com, to help you do that. So you can lay out what is your long-term strategy and what are the steps that need to be taken in order for you to get to your long-term strategy. Because just having the outcome doesn't mean anything. What is the strategic plan for you to actually connect the dots, again, from here to there? And looking at the future self that you'll be once you've achieved that outcome, and the current self that you are right now, having not yet achieved that outcome, what changes need to be undergone? These are all part of the long-term strategy. Listen, anybody can have a good game in sports. You ever seen somebody have just a good game? You're like, damn, I didn't know that player was that good to have that good of a game. And then the very next game, they go right back to being who you knew they were. Anybody can have a good day at work or a good day in life even. Not as many people have a good career. A lot of people have a good day. There are a lot of musical artists who can make one good song or one hit record. They call them one-hit wonders, right? But even though people laugh and make jokes about one-hit wonders in the music business, listen, there are a whole lot of one-hit wonders walking around this planet that aren't musicians. All right, there are one-hit wonders in sports. There are one-hit wonders in school. Any of you know, everybody here went to school, right? You ever had a classmate who had like one semester or one test or one day where they were really paying attention and actually being a good student and doing well, but then the rest of the year they were just this below average individual who ended up failing the class or flunking out of school? So there are one-hit wonders in school. There are one-hit wonders in sports. There are one-hit wonders in relationships. There are one-hit wonders in anything, in friendships. There are one-hit wonders at work. Any of you work with somebody who they're usually a very below average worker, but then one day they seem to be doing all the work, doing everything they're supposed to do. You're like, damn, I wish this person worked like this every day. They'd be amazing. And then the next day they go right back to being the average person they'd always been. All right, so a one-hit wonder is not just MC Hammer or Vanilla Ice. I said his name again. But one-hit wonders are not just people who make songs and you can only name one song that they made or two hits or whatever. One-hit wonders are anybody who look great at the wedding, but they don't look so great during the marriage. Not as many people have a great career as people have a great day. A good day or a good game can run off of adrenaline. I mean, you get excited enough, you have a big enough motivation, a big enough carrot being dangled in front of you, you can have a great day. Just because you got that carrot dangling in front of you. You just have the energy with you. But can you have a good career? All right, good luck can help you have a good day. Good timing can help you have a good season. But you can't run a whole career off of adrenaline or off of luck or off of timing. You can get a short-term outcome from any of those things. But long-term, you can't depend on those. It's not a sustainable strategy to say, all right, I'm going to just get lucky, or I'm just going to get motivated, or I'm just going to have good timing for the next 10 years, or for the rest of my life with this person I'm deciding to marry. That's not going to work. What are you going to do when the timing, the luck, and the motivation aren't there? That's that third day that we talk about. Masterclass number 907 is about how to get to the fourth day, what it feels like when you get to the fourth day. Point number 2. Today's topic is focusing on the marriage, not just the wedding. Number 2, I've heard that marriages and any longer term relationships outside of marriages, and these are the ones I know about. I can only say I heard about when it comes to marriages, but I've heard that they're work. And I mean work with all capital letters. Any of you remember the TV show The Real World on MTV? What did when The Real World first came out, this is the first reality show, for those of you who are maybe too young to remember. The Real World first came out, I think I was in high school when The Real World first came out. Might have been before that. But when The Real World came on, what would they say? That voiceover on the screen, it would say, we picked 7 strangers to live in a house, and they would pick different cities, and it'd be a nice house that all these people would put in, and they would get a job and they do something. And they said, and we put cameras in there so we could show y'all what happens when people stop being polite and they start being real. We want to find out what happens then. All right, and that's exactly what happens also. Anyone who's listening to this who is or has been married, isn't that how it is? All right, everybody's nice and feeling great at the beginning of a relationship, or maybe a day or two or a month or two after the wedding, but eventually you settle into a marriage. And people stop being polite and they start being real. And when you start working at a job, when you first get there, everybody's being polite and nice and kind of, feeling each other out. But eventually, people are going to stop being polite. They're going to stop showing you their representative, and they're going to show you the real version of themselves. And you might like it, and you might not. And there may be some challenges, some trials and tribulations to go through for everybody involved because of that. What happens when people stop being polite and start being real in your life? What happens when you stop being polite and start being real in your life? In any long-term relationship you've been in. And a relationship doesn't necessarily have to be with another person. If you're an athlete, do you always feel like going to practice? Do you always feel like training? Do you always feel like going to the weight room? Do you always feel like getting in that ice tub or putting that ice on your body? Or do you always feel like playing in every game? Probably not. But do you show up anyway? What happens when, again, the wedding is over, but you're in the middle of the marriage? As a basketball player, I can guarantee you there were plenty of days where I did not feel like being at practice, but I had to go to practice. If I didn't show up to practice, I wouldn't be on the team anymore. And I showed up and did what I had to do. Because that's part of the marriage. That's part of the work that you got to do when the wedding is over. Every relationship, just like The Real World on MTV, every relationship eventually moves past the polite stage and people start being real. Situations start being real. And when I say real, what I mean is people are not bending over backwards to be nice to you or to make things easy for you or to be accommodating. People are just doing what they're doing, and if it works for you, great. And if it doesn't work for you, so what? That's what I mean when I say real. And situations are the exact same way. Can we agree? Which means this: conflict, challenges, things need to be worked out. All right, those will all pop up in long-term relationships. And depending on how you deal with that conflict, depending on how you handle those challenges, depending on how and or if you work out the things that need to be worked out, that pretty much determines the quality of that long-term relationship or the existence of that long-term relationship. Is this true or not? Masterclass number 1230 talked about why many of us avoid uncomfortable conversations. One reason is we have not indoctrinated ourselves to understanding that for a long-term relationship to last, there will be uncomfortable moments that must be addressed. Not just uncomfortable moments that come and go. Uncomfortable moments that must be addressed. Conflict between people. Conflict between what you want to do and what you actually have to do. Challenges where another person challenges you, or a situation challenges you or challenges the group, and you all need to figure out how you're going to deal with that. Things that need to be worked out. Maybe some conflict that someone says they're not sure they can move past that conflict. It needs to be worked out because that's the only way the group can move forward or that relationship can move forward, or you as a person can move forward. You got to work out that problem that's in front of you right there. You can't move on until you deal with that problem, whatever it happens to be. If you're not willing to get uncomfortable and deal with that situation, then you're probably not going to advance. You won't move forward. That relationship is not going to last. You cannot have a long-term relationship with anything or anyone if you are avoiding of discomfort. If you have a habit of avoiding discomfort, long-term relationship's not going to work. Point number 3. Today's topic is focusing on the marriage, not just the wedding. The hard part of it, not just the fun, easy, post on social media part. When you go on social media, before I get into point number 3, you notice that people are apt to post photos of their wedding, right? Their pre-wedding photos. They go get a photo shoot before the wedding, and they got all their nice pictures. And then at the wedding, of course, there's thousands of pictures from the wedding. So they're posting pictures from the wedding. People who are at the wedding are posting pictures from the wedding. They got hashtags. You got a website for your wedding. You got the registry for people to buy you gifts and things like that. But how often do you see photos of people's marriage? There's a lot of photos of the wedding. Ain't as many photos of the marriage. Now, I know a whole lot of married people. I don't see too many photos of them saying, hey, this is the marriage. I see a lot of photos of the wedding, though. Now, it's not that I don't see any married couples post photos of each other and themselves together and the families and things like that. They do, but there's a lot more wedding photos get posted than marriage photos, if you understand what I'm saying. It's kind of a metaphor, but at the same time, it's not. You understand what I'm saying. Those of you who are married, you know what I'm talking about. Point number 3. Today's topic, again, is focusing on the marriage, not just the wedding. If you are building a long-term relationship with anything or anyone, you have to answer this question. What are the principles and underlying character traits that you are marrying for? This is a very important question. For example, for every one of us, we're all attracted to some type of individual person, right? And it's cool to be attracted to something or someone because there's a surface level attraction, right? Guys, you see a girl who looks physically good. You don't know anything about the girl, but she looks physically good. You're attracted to her. Nothing wrong with that. Ladies, same thing. You see a guy who looks good. There's nothing wrong with that. All right, it's fine to be attracted to someone because you feel like they look good, or you're attracted to a certain idea or experience or opportunity because it looks good on the surface. It looks like there's some benefit that you could possibly gain from it. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. We're human beings. All right, if you didn't have that, you're probably dead. All right, so we all have that. Nothing wrong with that at all. But here's the thing. Eventually that wears off. That surface level attraction wears off. I don't care how attractive a guy or a girl is. When you've been around them long enough, eventually you kind of get used to the fact that they look how they look, or they are how they are, or any opportunity in life. I don't care how great of an opportunity you consider it to be. Eventually, you get used to it because we are human beings. We are creatures of adaptation. We get used to things no matter what it is, no matter how novel and crazy it seems at first. Anything that we encounter, eventually we get used to it. Like, all right, I'm used to that now. All right, this is a beautiful car. Think about the car you drive. When you first got it, you were so excited about that car. Now you've had the car for 2 years. You don't even think about it anymore. You get in the car, drive to work, drive home. You never had one single thought about the car. Remember how excited you were when you first got it, though. And that doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. Or I'm not telling you that you need to re-excite yourself about this thing. Now, maybe with some people you need to re-excite yourself, but with an inanimate object, maybe not. With an opportunity, maybe not, depending on what it is. Because we're creatures of adaptation. We eventually get used to anything if we're exposed to it often enough and for long enough. So, knowing this, here's the question that you must answer in anything you're going to get involved with long term. Once that surface level excitement wears off, what remains? The person that you're with in a relationship or thinking about being with in a relationship, when you're no longer so excited about their physical appearance, what remains? What else attracts you to this person? And what else attracts this person to you? If you can't answer that question, then you may be making a mistake. Now, I'm not a relationship coach. I know a few, but I'm not one. I'm not telling you what to do and what not to do. I'm just asking you a question. I'm just posing you some information, some things for you to marinate on, some things for you to think about. Once you get used to the surface traits of a person, place, or thing, or experience, is there anything else underneath the surface that you care about? Is there anything else under the surface of that person you're with that you care about besides how they look, besides how they dress, or the car they drive, or the excitement of being around that person, whoever they happen to be? Because you're going to get used to it, and eventually it won't be as exciting anymore, because whatever excites you now, again, you will adapt to it and it'll become normal. That's the way we work as human beings. It's the way we're wired. Athletes, or wannabe athletes, they want to play sports. Or some athletes play collegiately, they want to play sports professionally. The main reason a lot of athletes want to play sports professionally is because, well, let me not say many athletes, I don't know all athletes, but many of those who I hear from, many of those who talk about playing a sport, specifically a sport like basketball, professionally, is because they notice all the trappings of success. They see all the things that it looks like it comes with, right? The money that you make, the attention that you get, the fame, the fans, especially from male players, they think it's going to make a whole lot of females be attracted to them, and sometimes they're right, sometimes they're not. It's the fact that you don't have to do all the things that you won't have to do if you're able to make it professionally in sports, and you won't have to become a professional in anything else. And you may not think you have the skills to be good at anything else, so you want to do the basketball thing because it will absolve you of having to do something else that may be a little bit more work, or not as exciting, or not as glamorous, or doesn't have the same trappings of success. And you are probably right. I don't know about your skill level, but all the rest of it, you're probably right. A lot of athletes want to get into it because they see the trappings of success. Or people want to get into anything that looks like anything that looks glamorous from the outside looking in. So being in the entertainment field, acting, music, modeling, sports. I put sports in the entertainment realm. People want to do these things, or being an influencer, like we talked about a couple classes ago when I said fuck all influencers. A lot of people want to get into these things because they see the trappings of the success. They see the fans, they see the attention, they see the admiration, they see the fact that other people want to be what they are, or at least what they present themselves to be. So a lot of people are getting into it for these wrong reasons, for these surface level reasons. Here's the challenge of getting into anything for a surface level reason. That when the wedding is over, you got to deal with the marriage. As an athlete, are you ready to practice every day? Are you ready to train every off season and invest in your training? Meaning you got to pay for your trainer, you got to pay for your facilities, you got to pay for your food, you got to pay for your workouts. Are you prepared to maybe not be playing as much as you think you should be playing because there are players on the team who are just better than you, or the coaches just think you don't need to be on the court? Are you ready to deal with that, be disciplined, and still show up and work hard the next day in practice? Are you ready to invest in the time you may need to spend rehabbing from an injury if you happen to get one, knock on wood? Are you ready to discipline yourself to do all these things I just talked about without supervision? Are you ready to invest money into your career? You want to be an influencer? Are you ready to invest in the times when you ain't got no influence yet, but you're trying to become one? Are you ready to invest in that? Are you ready to invest in building something real, something that lasts, even if the influencer bubble seems to pop sometime in the future? And it is going to pop at some point in the future. Now I hear you talking. I hear you saying that you want to do all these things. If you want to be a model, for example, I know the trappings of the success is you get to be on the cover of a magazine. People know you as somebody who looks good, right? You get all these followers. You get to do photo shoots. You get to see yourself in your best possible light. They airbrush and Photoshop all your photos so you look perfect. But are you ready to do the work? The food that you're not allowed to eat, the stuff that you're not allowed to do, the workouts that you have to do, the shoots that you got to go to, the hours sitting around waiting for them to set up the lighting, all these things that you got to do that are not so glamorous that most models ain't going to tell you about. That's all part of the marriage. All you thinking about is the wedding. Are you ready to do that hard work that goes behind it that allows the wedding to happen? Anyone here who has gotten married or been, if we got any wedding planners listening to this, or anyone who has worked in the trenches of a wedding that took place. Maybe you were very hands-on in putting the wedding together. Any brides who are listening to this, you were very hands-on in making sure your wedding happened exactly the way that you wanted it to happen. All right, how much work goes into the behind the scenes of that wedding as opposed to what everybody sees on the day of the wedding? It's a whole lot more work goes on behind the scenes than what people see when they show up to the ceremony. Are you willing to do the behind the scenes work? Now, I hear you talking that you're ready to do it. Everybody says they're ready to do it when they're just talking about it, but we'll find out. Time will tell. We will see, and it's going to be clear if you're really interested in the marriage or you're just focused on the wedding. Most people are focused on the wedding. So I don't know which one you are, but I would think you have the discipline to even listen to this today, that the odds are that you will be willing to deal with that marriage, but it's probably going to be some things that you weren't expecting. And that's where your mental toughness comes in. And I just did a masterclass on mental toughness not too long ago, masterclass number 1386, developing and maintaining, just over 2 weeks ago. So let's recap today's topic. Focusing on the marriage, not the wedding. This is a long-term game that you're in. A lot of people start things, but they don't know how to make it last. I talked about this in masterclasses 1266, 1044, and 926. Number one, most people have short-term goals, which is a good thing, and they're after those goals, which is also a good thing. But what's your long-term strategy? How do your short-term goals connect to your long-term goals? Have you written out and strategized your long-term outcomes and how to connect your current actions to those outcomes? If not, you need to do so today. Go to workonmygame.com/workbook and get the mental workbook and help yourself. Luck, adrenaline, and good timing cannot run a career. It can help you in one day, but it will not help you for an entire career. Your career cannot run on that alone. Number two, I've heard that marriages, and I know that any long-term relationship with an event, an experience, or a person are work. Remember The Real World on MTV? They said this is what happens when people stop being polite and start being real. Because every relationship eventually gets past the point of politeness and niceness and gets to the point of realness, which means conflict, challenges, and things that need to be worked out. And if you're not willing to deal with the discomfort, like I talked about in masterclass number 1230, you will not be able to sustain a long-term relationship with anything or anyone. Number three, if you are building a long-term relationship with anything or anyone, ask yourself, what are the principles and underlying character traits that you're marrying for? What are you interested in this man or woman, aside from the fact that they look good and they got a nice car? Is there anything else? If you can't answer that question, you may be entering a relationship for all the wrong reasons that's going to cost you, literally and metaphorically, in the long term. You understand what I'm saying? Once you get used to the surface traits of anything, because humans as adaptable creatures, we eventually get used to anything we're exposed to often enough, what else is under the hood that you care about? Athletes want to play sports because they see the trappings of success, or people want to be influencers because they see it. You want to be a model, you want to be a rapper, you want to be anything that looks like you can get yourself a whole lot of fame and money, and you look very accomplished and people look up to you, and it's great. And somebody got to fill those roles. So I'm not telling you not to do it. However, understand that the majority of the stuff that you see is only 5% of what actually goes on. The other 95% that you don't see, that you don't know about, that's going to smack you in the face the day after the wedding, you got to be ready for that. Because if you're not, the game will chew you up and it will spit you out, and you'll feel even more bitter for the fact that you touched it but you couldn't stay there. Work on your game. Dre all day.